I think we're all here. Let's call this to order. Please rise and join me in an invocation. Dear Lord, thank you for the privilege to serve. May we always be mindful that we do indeed serve and do it with the best of our ability and mindful of those whom we do serve. In your name we pray. Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So the first order is the adoption of the agenda. Does anyone have any additions or changes to the agenda? Mr. Perkins?
I move the agenda for the organizational meeting.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
A second.
It's been moved and seconded. Ms. Campbell, did you have? Nope. Okay. Please vote. And it passes 4-0. The next is the adoption and presentation of Resolution 19-09. Mr. Sorrell, will you please join us here on the, there you are, sorry. Please come forward. This is a resolution honoring Stephen E. Sorrell on his retirement as Executive Director of the Emerald Coast Utilities Authority on this 19th day of November 2019. Whereas Stephen Sorrell has served the Emerald Coast Utilities Authority as Executive Director for 17 years, holding the distinction of being the longest serving Executive Director in the 38-year history of the ECUA. Whereas Stephen Sorrell has worked tirelessly with the ECUA board to build the organization into one of the most highly respected utility operations in the state of Florida. Whereas Stephen Sorrell has transformed ECUA into a model for other water, wastewater, and sanitation collection recycling utilities to emulate. Whereas Stephen Sorrell is well known and respected for his leadership, sound judgment, uncompromised ethics, and exceptional dedication to the board and staff of ECUA and the Pensacola community. Whereas Stephen Sorrell directed and oversaw ECUA's complex recovery from Hurricane Ivan, which included the planning, design, and financing of the replacement of Old Stinky with ECUA's Central Water Reclamation Facility. Whereas Stephen Sorrell has been instrumental in ECUA receiving numerous awards recognizing its innovation and leadership in the utility field. Under his leadership, ECUA has earned 24 Peak Performance Awards and 3 National Environmental Achievement Awards from the National Association of Clean Water Agencies. ECUA also earned 4 excellent awards from the Solid Waste Association of North America, and whereas Stephen Sorrell, after 17 years of exemplary and selfless service to the utility industry and the public, has decided to retire as Executive Director of the Emerald Coast Utilities Authority to enjoy personal pursuits and the passage of time with families and friends. Don't talk to retirees about passage of time, but never mind. Now, therefore, be it resolved, the Emerald Coast Utilities Authority Board conveys its deepest and most sincere gratitude to Stephen E. Sorrell for his dedicated service to our community and customers, and congratulates him on the occasion of his retirement as Executive Director. Please join me in a round of applause. And somehow I thought you might want to say something.
Well, I want to say thank you, if nothing else. I greatly appreciate it. It's 17 years of a wonderful experience. We as a collectorate have accomplished great things. Could not have done it without each of you. I mean, it couldn't have happened. Moreover, these people back here, I mean, they're the greatest people on earth, and they're going to guide you, so you're not going to have any problems from here on. Bill Johnson, I mean, I had to bring him some cords today for his computer, believe it or not, for his phone, believe it or not. They called me and oh, we didn't have any cords, so I brought him some cords. But Bill worked with me for 17 years, and he will do a fine job for you in the interim until you can find and select an appropriate executive director. I haven't seen any more applications, but as I do, I'll at least let you know what I think. So But I appreciate very much what you've done for me. It's been a great 17 years. I mean, I came here 17 years ago, thought I'd be here just a very short period of time. You know, I told Linda that, you know, we'll go down there, it's a vacation if nothing else. Being just a damn Yankee from the north, we didn't have beaches and things like that. So I said, well, we'll go down there, it'd be a really nice vacation if nothing else. And it just kept going on, and we just accomplished more and more and more. You know, the moving of the Main Street old stinky plant, I mean, that was huge. And that was you know, just putting together a finance package and the engineering package of that was more than most people will ever know. Bill was part of that. And we just did a good job. And I say we, and I mean we, because it was each and every one of us. And I want to thank you very much. And believe it or not, Linda and I are right now on our way to AAA to plan our trip to Las Vegas, so I can go race car driving. And so she can go gambling. So we're going to leave here in just a few minutes, but I wanted to thank you very much for everything.
Well, and Mr. Sorrell, if you will just come up and shake hands with each of the board members, and I will give you this resolution. I think we've all said privately and publicly how much we have appreciated you. Phone problems? Well, have a great time and don't be a stranger.
Thank you. Thank you for everything, Dr. Walker. Appreciate it very much.
Safe travels. The next item on our agenda is item 5A, election of board chairman. First, I want to thank you all for the privilege of serving as your chair. In a time when people wield a lot of political power and jockey for that power, I appreciate the way that this board operates. I don't think we jockey for power. Leadership emerges organically, and each meeting and each issue, a different person becomes a leader. And I'm so proud to be on a board that operates like this, particularly in the current political climate. I've tried never to use the position of chairman as a position of power. I sort of see myself as a traffic controller and let you all take the leadership. I would be honored to serve again. It is certainly your choice to do that. So we will open the table for nominations of board chairman. Mr. Perkins.
Well, I would nominate Ms. Benson if you're willing to serve another term.
I would be privileged to. Thank you, Mr. Perkins. I would say is that a motion requiring a second? No. Okay. Are there other nominations? Well, I hate to jump on it. Yes. Dr. Walker.
I move that the nominations close.
Thank you. There's a motion to close the nominations.
Second.
Second. Please vote. And it passes 4-0. Thank you very much for your confidence, and it appears that we won't have to jockey seats, which will make staff happy. Next comes the election of board vice chair, and the nominations are open. Mr. Perkins.
I nominate Dr. Walker.
Dr. Walker's name is has been nominated. Are there any further nominations? Do I hear a motion that the nominations for vice chair be closed? Ms. Campbell?
Motion the nominations be closed.
We hadn't heard from him. I mean, he may be interested in another position, or he may not want that one. I'd just like to see how he feels
Sure.
about that and make sure he's comfortable with it before we go.
Okay. That's fine. Seems to be he accepts your nomination. Right. All right.
excited about
Right. Was that a second of the nomination? Okay. All right, so it's been moved and seconded that the nominations be closed. Seeing no further lights, please vote. And it passes 4-0. Item 5C is election of committee chairman. Is there a motion? Mr. Perkins.
I'll nominate Ms. Campbell.
Okay, Ms. Campbell's name is in nomination. Are there any further nominations? Dr. Walker?
I move that we close the nominations.
It's been moved that the nominations be closed. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any other discussion? Would you accept the position since we have the precedent like that? Ms. Campbell?
accept
Okay. All right, then please vote on the closing of the nominations. And Ms. Campbell, you will continue as chair of the CAC, and we now come to the election of vice chair of the CAC.
I'd like to nominate Dale Perkins.
Mr. Perkins has been nominated by Ms. Campbell.
It's with great enthusiasm that, excellent.
Hey, this is getting better. Great enthusiasm. Dr. Walker?
Move that we close the nominations and elect Mr. Perkins by acclamation.
And is there a second? It's been moved and seconded. Please vote. And it passes 4-0. This may be the only time that it's been good that we only have 4 members of the board, so no one is left out. Okay, we come now to the appointment approval of members of the Citizens Advisory Committee. I need some direction on how we do this.
I've got an idea.
Okay, Mr. Perkins, please.
Originally, I was a little bit confused about this because of the District 3 situation with
Right.
us having no board member. And I had contacted Mr. Beasley and asked how we deal with that. He came up with a solution, and it was somewhat cumbersome and complicated and stuff. And then I got to thinking about it and parliamentary procedure and stuff, and there's a simple way to do it if we're unanimous about it. And that would be that we waive the rules and that we just allow nominations for the District 3 representative to be open. And then, anybody can make a nomination, but we'd have to waive the rules, and I think a supermajority would probably, I don't know if it would be 3 or 4, but I would feel a lot more comfortable doing it if we had all 4 agreeing to that.
Okay. Dr. Walker? Is the motion to waive the rules, is that what the official motion is?
It would be.
Yeah.
See how the board feels about
Yeah.
that method of proceeding,
but
and if
that's
that's
what
where
we're-
we'd go,
yeah.
we'd go there.
Okay. So that's what the discussion is on waiving the rules.
I'm okay with that.
Is that a second?
Yeah. Was that a motion?
Waive the rules,
Yeah.
Second.
allow nominations.
Okay. Ms. Campbell?
I like that idea,
Yeah,
actually.
okay. So we are voting on waiving the rules so that we can then proceed to make that appointment. Please vote. And it passes 4-0. Okay, so now nominations are open for the District 3 seat for the CAC. Ms. Campbell?
So I would like to nominate please help me if I mess this up, Claristi Schumo? I did good. I see that she put her name in. She is a District 3 person. I know, I remember that from years ago. So,
Mr. Perkins?
I think, I was really torn on this one because, Dr. McCorvey nominated somebody and they've served and served well, but Ms. Shumo has been at basically all our meetings, been very active in the participation. I think would do a good job, and I want to support the motion. I think it'd be a good move for that district and for, you know, for us as a body. She's active in the community, I think would represent the district well.
Let me throw out another thought, because I have given this some thought, and I talked to Ms. Schumo in anticipation of this. You know, Mr. McCorvey had appointed Ms. Booker, who has served very well. And what I was imagining, since that seat is vacant here, I would like to give it as much weight as it could on the CAC. What if we reappointed Ms. Booker for the District 3 appointment, and then entertained having Ms. Schumo as an at-large representative, so that we would have 2 members of that district serving on the CAC?
The only,
Yes, you reckon?
we have 2 now. Mr. McCorvey appointed Ms. Schneier, and she's from District 3. So if we did that, we would have to get rid of Ms. Schneier, because you can't have more than 3 from one district, you know, so that would be something, that's, you know, something we'd have to consider. So, you can't have more than 2 from one district.
Right.
Right.
My
And we-
apology, yeah, you
and
can't
if
have
we
more
did
than 2
that,
from
We
one
could
district.
not have more than 2.
So,
Can't have 3.
So that would cause complications, potentially.
So,
Ms. Campbell?
well, if Ms. Booker wanted to, we could put her name in the at-large
Right.
vote.
Right.
But,
Yeah, that way
You know.
Right,
Yeah.
Right.
right, yeah. So we can do it this way and vote on Ms. Schumo as the District 3 CAC.
and add Ms.
Yeah.
Booker.
Right.
Do you wanna,
Right.
amend that?
Oh, well,
for a nomination.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
right now, we're just nominating for
Okay.
the District
Okay.
3, so we can take that separately, right. Did you have anything further, Ms. Campbell?
No.
Dr. Walker?
I wish to make a nomination for the District 3 seat, Mr. Charles Thornton. He's not here today, and he hasn't specifically applied, but, and that, well, but I know that he has been interested very much in representation of District 3, and he was on the scene as recently as one of the receptions for Mr. Sorrell. So I would like to propose that Mr. Charles Thornton be considered.
Okay, we have a second name in nomination. Mr. Beasley, I know you've been looking at our code. Do we require to have a resume at the time someone is nominated or voted on for CAC? And I think that's been our practice, but I don't know if the code indicates that.
We do. And the reason, and he can look at it, but the reason I know is because I've
Yeah.
tried to appoint somebody one time that was not approved, you know, and that's kind of where that rule came out of. The illustrious Mr. B.J. Clark, I don't know if anybody remembers him, but the the rule came about after that, and so,
Then I'll withdraw my nomination of Mr. Thornton. Because
and
we
he
did
may
not-
have a resume somewhere. It seems like he's applied, I don't know if he's filed a resume with us, probably not.
I think so.
Yeah, I think he applied for the board position, so there
Okay.
may be one. All right, so that name has been withdrawn. Ms. Campbell?
Plus, you know, I wouldn't feel good if I didn't know if he wanted this position. I mean, do you have, does Dr. Walker know if he wants the position?
Dr. Walker?
Well, it is a fact that we do not have either an application or a resume from him concerning this. I'm sure that if he had thought of it, he would have done so. But fact is, we do not have a resume, and I think that is a requirement. So I stand down on that particular idea. I'm sure that if Ms. Schumo is elected, she'll do a fine job. But now, I would ask, is there now an election about to take place between Ms. Schumo and Ms. Booker?
No, at this point, there's only one nomination for a seat for District 3.
It will result in an election more than likely.
Right.
With the other two District 3 representatives,
Right.
Ms. Schneer and Ms. Booker,
Right.
for the at-large seat. And then, I feel pretty strongly about Mr. Kimball. He served us well in the at-large seat, and I want to keep him there, so,
Dr. Walker?
Schneer, Booker, and Schumo may not all serve at the same time, as I understand it.
Right, right. So this is, we're making a special exception for a unique appointment for District 3 right now. Did you have more, Dr. Walker?
Is Ms. Booker, has she met all the requirements of being considered for an appointment to, a reappointment?
Yes.
She has.
So right now, we have one nomination for the District 3. Is there a motion to close the nominations?
I make a motion, we close the nomination.
Ms. Campbell?
second.
It's been moved and seconded. Seeing no further lights, we are voting on Ms. Schumo as the CAC representative for District 3. Please vote.
A point of order, I
Yes,
guess,
sir.
Madam Chairman.
Yes,
We're voting for or against Ms.
that's
Schumer.
correct, yes.
Where does Ms. Booker fit in?
That will come later on. Yes, this is a bit of a legal anomaly because,
This is just a District 3 seat nobody's in that seat.
right,
Ms. Booker's in that seat, right?
well,
Yeah, nobody's in the board seat.
on the board seat. So there's not a board member to make this appointment. So we are acting as a body on behalf of the District 3 board member.
If Ms. Schumer does not get a majority of the votes, then do we consider Ms. Booker for the District 3 appointment, or?
Or anybody else that has a
Right.
resume.
Yeah, or we could consider Ms. Booker for the at-large seat. If we can clear this for a minute, Mr. Beasley, would you kind of weigh in on this process from a code and legal perspective? Why we're dealing with just this one seat?
Sure. The issue of the vacancy created at the CAC as a result of the vacancy on the board with Mr. McCorvey's seat is not addressed in our existing code. The existing code provides very clearly that each member of the board may appoint one person as a citizen member of the applicants. And there's been talk about resume and so forth. What the code actually says is that each person may submit, any interested party, resident may submit an application with relevant experience, education, and qualification. So we do have that application step, which has the resume component to it as a requirement. So within that pool, then, each district appointee may appoint a member to the CAC. When we get to the issue of vacancies, the code on vacancies provides simply that in any situation of a vacancy with the CAC membership, it's filled in the same manner as previously filled. So we kind of turn a circle back to. There's actually no provision in this code that solves our dilemma, our current dilemma, where you have a vacancy at the board, and then that board place at the CAC is vacant also. And so, as Mr. Perkins and I discussed earlier yesterday, or today, it was yesterday we discussed, I think, I looked through and came up with, as he suggested, some fairly complicated legal ways to do it, and he proposed a much more simple way to do it, which is to solve this issue. I'll note that one of my projects next week during Thanksgiving week is to work on the code, and we are observing a lot of these little issues like we did with the issue of the director position, and we will soon be proposing a series of changes to the code. Obviously, shoring up this vacancy issue is one of them, but for now, in order for that position to be served, the board itself could nominate, under a suspension of the rules, the board itself could nominate that District 3 position and then vote on it.
Right. So this is a unique position. We suspended the rules, and we are now only considering this one. Are you prepared to vote? Or do you want to discuss it a little bit more, Dr. Walker? You're recognized.
Thank you. We'll have an election for the District 3 representative position next year, whether the governor wants us to or not. And electing one person to serve as, who might be a candidate to serve as the District 3 member of the CAC this year would seem to give an inside track to that particular person. And while, and without it meaning any prejudice to Ms. Schumo, I'm wondering if we would be unfair to others who might be seeking the elective board seat next year if we were to elect her or Ms. Schumo or anyone else to that position, to the committee position at this time.
Thank you, Dr. Walker. Mr. Perkins?
Well, there are a couple of things, you know, in response to that. I mean, it might be unfair to somebody in the race, you know, with all the different candidates in the race, but it's unfair to the district and the people to not have somebody in that seat, you know. So I think it's incumbent upon us to fill the seat. Now, another thing is, we have suspended the rules for this special thing, so it may be that having to have a resume on site for the, you know, for the appointment is suspended. I mean, the rules are suspended for this appointment, so, you know, if you wanted to nominate another person, I mean, I would think that would fall within the purview of the board, since the rules are suspended. You know, so that might be something that gives you some relief as far as fairness there, but I feel like, yeah, it's definitely not the perfect situation. I would love to have a board member from District 3 making this appointment like they're supposed to and entitled to. But they already don't have a board member for their district. To not have a Citizens Advisory Committee member would be even worse, in my opinion.
Ms. Campbell?
I agree with Mr. Perkins wholeheartedly. It's bad enough that the District 3 doesn't have a board member, but not to have a CAC member is unacceptable to me. So, and I also agree that if we've suspended the rule, then if Dr. Walker would like to put Charles Thornton's name in there to vote on, I'm fine with that too.
Dr. Walker?
Well, as I listen to my own logic evolving, I realize that Mr. Thornton has been, was one of the ones who appealed to the governor for appointment to the empty board seat, and he has not yet pre-filed to run for the seat in 2020, as I understand it, but it's possible that he would do so. Therefore, if I am following my own logic, I would be hesitant, be reluctant to try to appoint him to this committee seat. I do know that, I do think it unlikely that Ms. Booker would seek appointment, election to the position. As far as I know, she has no such desire. And so I wonder why we don't just reappoint Ms. Booker to the District 3 seat. And may I add that I basically thought that all of the incumbent committee members were in effect de facto nominated. That's why I didn't mention any Ms. Booker's name before.
Ms. Campbell?
Oh, no,
I'm sorry.
Well, they are, because the living elected board members in the seats have said, you know, in the Citizens Advisory Committee meetings, that they're going to reappoint the same people. There's nobody there in the District 3 seat to say that, so we don't know, you know.
Once again, the ways
Yeah. Well, and, right. I certainly support Ms. Schumo for this position. You know, the other thing is, this district was determined by the courts, well fought as a minority access district. I would like to see at least 2 members of the minority as part of the CAC, and I will certainly support Ms. Booker as the at-large CAC members, so that, you know, the voice of District 3 needs to be heard loud and clear, especially, it needs to be heard on the board, but certainly on the CAC, we need to be very cognizant. So obviously, I'm not voting for Ms. Booker here, and that's not part of the discussion. But I do support Ms. Schumo. Mr. Beasley.
Ms. Booker is currently sitting in the seat. So following Dr. Walker's point and doing legal work on the fly, if you look at the code, it says that each committee member shall serve until the next organization meeting of the board or until the successor is appointed. And shall be eligible for reappointment. So it seems to suggest that Dr. Walker's suggestion that they may continue to remain in their place until a successor is appointed may be a valid read of the code. So you could leave Ms. Booker in her place because a successor is not appointed,
Okay.
and thus leaving that seat filled, and then do what you need to do on the open seats.
And
Mr. Perkins?
by the reading of that, it may be that we're required to do that. Is that the way you read it?
Shall serve until the next organizational meeting of the ECUA board or until his or her successor is appointed. So the term of service is from board to board or until appointed,
okay.
successor is appointed. So maybe just I mean, sometimes you look at these words differently once you start talking about it.
Yeah.
So I think there's a possibility that you could be in compliant with the code by leaving Ms. Booker in place.
Ms. Campbell?
And it is,
Nothing.
and there's also the possibility that we could be non-compliant with the code by replacing her. Is that, you know, does Ms. Booker have recourse if we take her off to say, hey, the code says I'm supposed to be there?
It says shall serve. Shall. And the word shall usually is interpreted as an absolute. So I think the code is directing that her term of service is from organizational meeting to organizational meeting or until the successor is appointed. And so I think, I don't know that it changes the debate about suspending the rules and appointing a successor. I think you still very well could do that. But when Dr. Walker suggested that his impression was that, you know, each board member remains in
Valid.
place, it caused me to reread the section of the term, which definitely provides for her to persist in that position until her successor is replaced or nominated.
Ms. Campbell?
So I thought what we were doing was suspending the rule because we did not have anyone to appoint a successor.
Right.
So we're not against the code to suspend the rules and appoint a successor.
I think you could do that exactly, in which you are
Right.
where you're headed now. The question then became of, could she continue in that seat? And you just don't address the issue at all because it's not a vacancy. We were addressing it from the perspective of it being a vacancy. But if you read the term of the seat, it may very well not be a vacancy if you decide not to address it at all. She remains in the seat.
If I may continue.
Yes, please
If
do.
we suspend the rules and appoint Ms. Schumo, we can still appoint Ms. Booker as an at-large, though, which is where we were
Right.
headed. I just want to make sure that it is within our prerogative.
I think once you suspend the rules, then you have the authority to do what you're doing.
Thank you.
The question then becomes, well, I don't know that there is any question at that
No,
point.
yeah,
Okay. Thank you.
So essentially, there are two ways to do this. One is to reappoint or to allow Ms. Booker to continue and then take up Ms. Schumo as an at-large candidate. But right now, the nomination that we have for this seat is Ms. Schumo, and there are no other nominations. So I see no more lights. Is there someone who wishes to move that the nominations be closed?
I move the nominations be closed.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Please vote. And it passes 3-1. Congratulations, Ms. Schumo. We will look forward to your input on the Citizens Advisory Committee. And by the way, this was obviously an issue of process that was debated. It had nothing to do with you personally. Okay,
So
then,
the
yes.
rules are now reinstated since we just did that
Okay.
for the one thing. Madam Chairman, may I
Yes.
ask a privilege? Can we, given these developments, can we take the at-large positions before we take the individual positions?
Without objection, I think we can.
Thank you, yes.
I would like to nominate Mr. Kimball for one of the at-large positions.
Okay, we have a nomination of Mr. Kimball. Is there another nomination? Dr. Walker?
Madam Chairman, we've always elected the, announced really and approved the appointments to the district positions prior to going to the general positions. So if it's not too late, I do object to doing it the other way. I think we should
That's fine.
announce our appointments.
If the maker of the motion does not object, we can do the district appointments. Are you okay with that, Mr. Perkins?
No, but I'll go along with it.
I don't think it would change anything.
We've never had a contentious.
Oh, well, does number one go first?
Or do we want to just move the current slate of nominees from the board members?
No, well, we have one not returning, so
Right,
it'd probably
okay.
be smart just to.
Okay, let's go one by one. District 1,
Yes, I would like to reappoint Ms. Deborah Ben.
okay. Ms. Ben, I'm District 2, and I would like to reappoint Mr. Ponson. Mr. Perkins
I'd like to appoint Ms. Louise Ritz.
and Dr. Walker.
My appointment is Mr. Maurice J. Inkle, Jr., better known as Joe Inkle.
And we have
Move the district appointees.
been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
I see no lights. Please vote. And it passes 4-0. We come now to the at-large positions. Mr. Perkins, would you like to make a motion?
I'd like to nominate Mr. Kimball.
Okay. Are there any other nominations? Ms. Campbell? Oh, I don't think we second nominations. Any other nominations?
I'd like to nominate Ms. Schneer.
Schneier, I think it is. Yeah.
Can-
Any other nominations? Dr. Walker?
May one board member nominate two?
They're
I
not
think so.
from,
At
they're not,
large?
yeah, they're
Yeah,
not from the same
they're at large.
district. Yeah, they're at large. And they have to be where we don't have more than two from any one district, and we would not. Ms. Schneier is from District 3, and Mr. Kimball is from District 2, or District 1. Okay.
Dr. Walker? Okay. Will you take this? I want to make a nomination. And
The acting chair recognizes Mrs. Benson.
I'd like to nominate Ms. Booker. And just to speak on her behalf, she was Mr. McCorvey's choice, and she served well, and I would like to amplify the minority voice on the CAC, so I support her. Dr. Walker? No. Okay, we have 3 nominees. We have Ms. Schneier, Ms. Booker, and who's the other one? So, right. Okay, so you have some ballots in front of you. Are these, shall we? Mm-hmm.
Ms. Schumer made it through on the first run. She doesn't have to sweat this.
I know, right? I don't know, you've always had to sweat everyone, Dr. Walker.
Madam Chairman,
Yes,
may I make a comment?
of course,
All three of these are fine people.
absolutely.
It's a hard choice to choose among them. I just want to say that my vote is based on who I think have been the most effective board members,
Okay.
committee members in the past.
Okay,
No other consideration.
of course. Ms. Campbell?
Absolutely, and I would like to thank all of the CAC members that served last year, Mr. Kimball, Ms. Schneier, and Ms. Booker. I appreciate all three of them.
You never know, there might be another round.
That's true.
Mhm.
May have a 2-2.
I know. We've never had an organizational meeting go 45 minutes, maybe longer than the board meeting. It's a pretty light agenda.
I'm glad it didn't turn out to be a ferocious fight among us.
I always hate it when
We
that
have
happens.
had some